In a moment that stunned the courtroom, a senior police general stood before Justice Madlanga and pleaded for mercy. Within minutes, a career that had spanned decades collapsed under the weight of its own allegations. South Africa's political and law enforcement landscape has been defined by battles over accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity. In a dramatic legal confrontation that has captured national attention, a high-ranking police general, once considered untouchable within the upper ranks of law enforcement, found himself facing intense judicial scrutiny. The proceedings unfolded before Justice Michael Madlanga, a respected member of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, known for his measured yet uncompromising approach to constitutional matters. According to reports presented during the hearing, the general was implicated in allegations relating to procurement irregularities, abuse of authority, and possible interference in internal investigations. While the claims remain subject to legal processes, the gravity of the accusations immediately placed the spotlight on the broader leadership culture within the South African Police Service. The hearing itself was brief but consequential. Observers noted a visible shift in tone when the presiding justice addressed the general directly, questioning inconsistencies in sworn statements and highlighting discrepancies between official records and internal communications. Within what felt like minutes, the credibility of a once powerful official appeared to unravel. The general in question had served for over 2 decades in various provincial and national leadership roles. Rising through the ranks during a turbulent period in South Africa's post-apartheid security restructuring, he was seen by allies as a stabilizing force within the force. However, critics argue that systemic weaknesses in oversight allowed certain senior officials to operate with insufficient accountability. Justice Madlanga's involvement elevated the significance of the matter. Known for his contributions to landmark rulings reinforcing constitutional supremacy, his oversight signaled that the allegations had implications far beyond one individual. At stake was not merely a career, but public trust in institutions meant to safeguard democracy. The proceedings reportedly focused on whether the general's actions violated statutory obligations and ethical codes governing public office. Sources suggest that financial oversight mechanisms were bypassed in certain contracts, raising questions about compliance with Treasury regulations and internal SAP's procurement frameworks. While headlines describe the general's career dying in 5 minutes, the phrase reflects the speed at which the courtroom narrative shifted. During cross-examination, key documents were presented that allegedly contradicted earlier testimony. Legal analysts observing the hearing noted that once those discrepancies were highlighted, the defense's position weakened significantly. In a measured but firm exchange, Justice Madlanga emphasized the constitutional duty of public officials to uphold transparency. The moment reportedly culminated in the general appealing for leniency, citing decades of service and the potential damage to his reputation. However, judicial proceedings are not governed by emotion. They are guided by evidence and constitutional principle. Within minutes of the exchange, it became evident that institutional consequences were unavoidable. Administrative suspension and internal disciplinary processes were set in motion shortly thereafter, according to parliamentary oversight sources. The developments have intensified political debate across party lines. Opposition figures argue that the case underscores long-standing concerns about internal accountability within law enforcement. Some have called for broader reforms, including enhanced parliamentary monitoring and independent auditing of high-value contracts. Meanwhile, senior figures within the governing establishment have urged caution, emphasizing the importance of due process. They have stressed that allegations must be tested in court rather than adjudicated in the court of public opinion. The Parliament of South Africa has indicated that its Portfolio Committee on Police may seek further clarification from SAP's leadership. Transparency advocates have welcomed this development, arguing that democratic oversight is essential to restoring confidence. Civil society organizations have also weighed in, noting that the case forms part of a broader national reckoning over corruption in governance. Since the findings of the Zondo Commission, public sensitivity to allegations involving state officials has heightened dramatically. South Africans have become increasingly attentive to how institutions respond when senior figures face scrutiny. Public response has been swift and intense. Social media platforms have reflected widespread frustration, with many citizens expressing concern about the recurring pattern of senior officials facing allegations of misconduct. However, there has also been a notable call for restraint, with legal experts reminding the public that investigations must proceed without prejudice. Political commentators suggest that the symbolism of a senior general appealing directly to a constitutional court justice resonates deeply. It represents, in the eyes of many, a shift from an era of perceived impunity toward one of institutional assertiveness. Yet the situation also exposes vulnerabilities within governance structures. If allegations are substantiated, they would raise questions about internal checks and balances that failed to detect or prevent irregularities earlier. The immediate administrative impact includes suspension pending further investigation, though final determinations remain subject to formal disciplinary and potentially criminal proceedings. If wrongdoing is proven, consequences could range from dismissal to prosecution under anti-corruption statutes. However, broader implications extend beyond one individual. The case may catalyze renewed calls for structural reforms within SAPS, including improved procurement oversight, digital auditing systems, and enhanced whistleblower protections. Political analysts also warn that the timing of the case, amid ongoing debates about public sector accountability, could influence public confidence ahead of future electoral cycles. Trust in law enforcement remains a cornerstone of democratic stability, and any erosion of that trust carries long-term consequences. South Africa's democratic institutions have undergone significant stress tests over the past decade. From high-profile inquiries to court-led accountability measures, the judiciary has often emerged as a central pillar in upholding constitutional norms. Justice Madlanga's handling of the matter reinforces the judiciary's role as guardian of legality. By focusing strictly on documentary evidence and statutory obligations, the court underscored a critical principle: no official is above constitutional scrutiny. This case also illustrates a tension inherent in governance, balancing respect for service history with uncompromising adherence to legal standards. While personal appeals may evoke sympathy, constitutional accountability demands impartial application of the law.